Well, for more on this, we're joined by Mark Regev, the spokesman for the Israeli Prime Minister. Mark, good to have you on the programme. There's not a lot of optimism here at all, is there? And the US Secretary of State is very clear about where he thinks the problem lies. He says settlement construction is unhelpful and illegitimate.
We're also concerned that the process isn't moving forward quickly enough. We'd like to see these negotiations succeed. I'd remind you that we're only 3 months into a 9-month process, so maybe it's too early yet to talk about a breakthrough. But we're willing to make the hard choices. We hope the Palestinians are too.
When you talk about hard choices, it's true, isn't it, that the latest plans last week for a meeting between negotiators was completely derailed by the announcement of over 3,500 new settler homes.
Let me be clear. When I talk about hard choices, I'm talking about Israel fully abiding by all the understandings that were reached that allowed this set of negotiations to start. And one of those understandings was the prisoner release. And as you've reported here on Al Jazeera, there was overwhelming disapproval of the government's decision to release those terrorists from Israeli jails. Something like 90% of the Israeli public. Yet my Prime Minister stood up against public opinion. He said he wants to give these talks a chance, and he released the prisoners, as I say, even though that decision is overwhelmingly unpopular in my country. Now, we're doing this because we want the process to work. We're willing to take those tough choices. We hope the Palestinians are too.
Well, OK, coming back to tough choices, as you've pointed out, Kerry says there needs to be real compromise and hard decisions from both sides. What is Israel afraid of? What's it afraid will happen if it puts settlement activity on hold just for the duration of the timetable that there is still to run on this process, which you've pointed out has 6 months to go?
Well, we've done that in the past, and frankly, it didn't help. We did in the previous Netanyahu government. We did a 10-month settlement moratorium, and unfortunately, it didn't achieve the result that we thought it would achieve. It didn't allow the return to negotiations. I think the issue of the settlements, like all the other core issues, has to be negotiated between us and the Palestinians, and that's what we're calling for. Serious, face-to-face negotiations with all the core issues on the table. And we don't think grandstanding or creating artificial crises is going to help.
A lot of these meetings obviously been carried out in secret. There have been some leaks, but the overwhelming feeling and the rumours swirling around is that those peace talks, which were resumed in July, are now on the brink of collapse. What's your assessment?
Well, the talks are happening in secret, and rightfully so, because if there's any chance for diplomacy to succeed, the talks have to be conducted in great discretion.
But right now, Mark, it doesn't seem as though the talks, right now, it doesn't seem as though the talks are on track to succeed.
Well, we're only 1/3 into a 9-month period, and from our point of view as Israel, we want the talks to succeed. We're willing to make all the effort and put all the energy in and to take the tough choices. We hope the Palestinians are too. Now, if peace is ever going to happen between Israelis and Palestinians, it has to be a two-way street. It's not enough that I want peace. Our Palestinian neighbors have to finally say that they recognize the legitimacy of the Jewish state, that they're willing to live with us in peace. And that sort of message we have to hear from them. We also want to hear from them that they are willing to take seriously our legitimate security concerns, because there is no peace in this very volatile region without security. And without security and legitimacy, there can be no peace.
But can I just bring it back to the question of settlements? I mean, you're still building settlements, even as you accuse the Palestinians of not being sincere. Doesn't it suggest that Israel is not a sincere partner for peace?
But you've had peace and quiet, as you put it, a good number of times down the last decade or so and more, and you did nothing with it.
I disagree. We've wanted to negotiate. We've wanted to move forward. What does Hamas say? Hamas opposes any negotiations with Israel. Hamas denies my country's very right to exist, and Hamas has declared war on every single Israeli civilian, man, woman, and as we saw 2 weeks ago, children as well. Hamas is the antithesis of peace and reconciliation, and as such, if Hamas comes out of this weekend, as to refer to your first question, I think that could give new momentum to the peace process.
But in truth, what you've done, surely, is to erode everything by continuing to build utterly internationally unacceptable and illegal settlements in land that isn't yours. And that has been the single most destructive aspect of the whole relationship between you and Palestine.
I know that's the conventional wisdom, but if you'll allow me to challenge it, I'd like to say the following sentence. Actually, in Gaza, we took down all the settlements. In Gaza, we removed them, and those settlers who didn't want to leave, we forced them to leave. And we pulled back to the 1967 lines in Gaza. Now, I would ask you, what has the Palestinian body politic done to want to encourage us to do that again? And until the Palestinians can answer that question,
well, let me put that,
because when we took down settlements and when we pulled out...
Let me put that question to Hanan Ashrawi, who has joined us from Ramallah. She was one of the most prominent people in the Middle East peace process. She's on the executive committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. What is your answer to Mark Regev's dismissal of the idea that the great stumbling block has been settlements?
Well, that's one of the stumbling blocks. It's a great one because it violates international law, it violates the most basic requirements of peace, it preempts the outcome of the talks, it destroys the chances of a two-state solution by destroying the possibility of a contiguous viable Palestinian state. So settlements are a land theft, settlements are totally antithetical to peace, settlements show bad faith and show seriousness of intent to carry out unilateral measures to preempt the outcome of talks and to prevent the success of the talks. So yes, settlements are entirely antithetical and they're not just a major obstacle, they're really the death knell of the talks. But there are other issues, including Israeli impunity. Israel acts and exists outside international law, not just with settlements, but with other issues, and has evolved a very racist, total disregard for Palestinian lives and rights, leading to this lethal, cruel blockade of Gaza, the siege of Gaza, and of course, the fragmentation of the West Bank, collective punitive measures.
Before I put that to Mark Regev, let me just ask you a specific question, which is that you are there on the West Bank, a long way out of here. Do you feel complete solidarity with the people of Gaza? Are you in solidarity with Hamas, who were, until very recently, very much your allies in the West Bank, in a new relationship?
I'm so sorry. Are you asking me this question about our relationship with Hamas? I can barely hear you. The sound is not very clear.
I am asking you specifically, I'm asking you, are you in solidarity with the people of Gaza and with Hamas in particular, who were until recently with you in the West Bank in administering the entire Palestinian areas?
Look, we feel that this assault is an assault on all the Palestinian people. It's an assault on the whole Palestinian national program. It shows total disregard for Palestinian lives. You have a captive population besieged by air, by land, by sea, being shelled and bombed and pounded, and hundreds of civilians killed, thousands injured. We are in solidarity because we are one people. The Palestinian people are one. Hamas is part of a pluralistic political system. What Israel is trying to do is that it's trying to demonize Hamas, pull out the terrorist card, and give itself license to kill and destroy at will without any intervention or accountability. So we are one people, and we are one political system. We may have disagreements, we have political disagreements, there's nothing wrong with that. But this assault is an assault on everything that is human and decent and moral.